Hello, everyone. I am Anne Kampf. Welcome to the fifth session of our series Lead, Feel, Connect, a space created to inspire learning, connection, and growth. This series is for leaders, engineers, project managers, and builders of complex systems who are also quietly people with inner worlds. The pressure you absorb, the emotions you manage, the steadiness you provide, all while navigating expectations, decisions, and uncertainty. Today, we step into the space beneath the surface, the place where emotions, patterns, and possibilities live. This is what I call the inner work of outer experience. Before we begin, I want to offer the lens through which I make sense of human behavior, something I've come to call the physics of people. It comes from a simple, very human insight. Just like systems, people move according to their own energetic laws. And when we understand those laws, so much suddenly makes sense. Why change feels hard, why we repeat certain patterns, why we resist even the things we say we want, and how real transformation actually happens. As someone trained in physics, it was natural for me to look for those forces behind the human behavior. Over time, curiosity um, brought me to uh, evolve into my own human system model, a way of seeing people through the lens of four core forces that shape how we think, feel, and lead. Um, Internal gravity, what naturally pulls us, energetic tension, the space between who we are and who we are becoming, the archetypal momentum, the patterns that push us forward or keep us looping, and the systemic resonance, the alignment between our inner world and our outer environment. When we can see these forces, we can work with them, not against them. So alignment becomes a choice and not a mystery. And to explore this deeper, I'm truly honored to welcome David Langiuli. David and I share an origin in physics, a discipline that trains you to seek truth beneath appearance. But physics also teaches something leadership confirms. Your unseen forces shape visible outcomes. David's path led from scientific research into executive coaching, emotional intelligence, somatic awareness, neuro linguistic programming, and jujitsu, where leadership becomes something you feel and inhabit, uh, not just something you do. David is also author of several books. For more than a decade, David has coached leaders across North America, from Stanford and Harvard to Meals on Wheels, Catholic Health, Princeton, and Yale. His work helps leaders reduce stress, strengthen relationship, communicate with clarity, and elevate performance. Clients describe him as gently fierce, a unique blend of compassion and courage shaped by his experience as a world champion Jiu-Jitsu black belt and his experience in and expertise in positive intelligence. Before coaching, he led a division at Princeton University, raising 35 million annually, and has worked across early stage ventures, research, strategy, and cross-functional leadership. David, welcome. Thank you for being
Thank
here today.
you. Happy to be here with you, Anna.
Well, positive intelligence teaches that meaningful leadership begins with a simple shift, becoming aware of the inner patterns driving our outer behavior. So,
Yeah,
David,
yeah.
what i-
The
can
inner
you?
work, the inner
Yes,
work, as you say. Yes.
Can you develop a bit? Or what did physics teach you about reality? And what did it not teach you about being human?
I have to say, my my experience of studying physics and material science at the university level taught me very little about being a human being, the being of humanness. Um, really, thankfully, my father was a philosopher, and a lot of his writing and work was in the area of uh, ontology or being. And so I had this pull towards understanding human nature from a different lens than what physics might give us. I think physics is very helpful in engineering for understanding um, the natural world as we see it or observe it, but
Right.
it doesn't give us much insight. We might say, we're going to talk about metaphysics today. I think that's where we're heading. So beyond physics, right?
Right. Beyond physics and beyond self.
And beyond self. I mean, the big question, what is the self? Well, I actually don't think any physicist can define it. I've yet to read a physics paper that accurately defines the self, but if there is a physicist out there who can tell me, I'd be happy to listen. This more lives in the land of inner work,
Mhm.
discovery of who we are, and that can inform what we do in the observable world. And I became very aware of this about 25 years ago when I went through I was working at the University of Wyoming doing technology transfer and licensing. So very much a physics and engineering oriented type of
Technique
work.
oriented. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was invited to participate in a year-long leadership program. And a big part of that program was called the inner work of a leader. And that's when I started to meditate and when I started to become aware of my patterns and my behaviors and my personality and the impact that I was having on people around me. So that's kind of, it's been a 25-year journey.
Which emotions were hardest for you to acknowledge?
Good question. The one that I've been working on the most is anger. And this work, especially as a father in a family with two daughters and a wife, uh,
It is
my
kind of wild.
my anger didn't serve me very well. So we're going to start talking about emotions, but every emotion has a useful purpose, including anger. For those of you out there who would never let yourself get angry, well, you're cutting off a part of yourself. So, if we want to talk about the science of emotions and the neuroscience of emotion, it's a very interesting topic, one I dive into quite a bit. But all of our emotions are evolutionarily favorable in one way or another, including anger. However, if I were to access the Stoic, again, we're going to dip into philosophy now a little bit. The Stoic view and the Buddhist view is that as a human being, we can channel that anger, which is an internal state, we can channel that externally in a skillful way. In the Buddhist tradition, we would call this skillful means. Except most of us, including myself, never expressed my anger very skillfully until recently. Yeah. So that's the one I've been working on the most. How about you, Anna? What's
Um,
what's your difficult emotion that you're working on?
um, I think it's fear of failure.
Fear
Hmm.
of failure, right? Well,
Yes.
fear is one of the basic emotions. It's one of, love. You could say that all emotions boil down to two things: love and fear, none of which you're going to read about in a physics textbook or an engineering course.
No, no, not for sure. But when when was this shift? When did your identity shift, or how did your identity shift when you began leading human beings rather than
Right.
systems?
Rather than systems are doing
Mm,
technical work. Yeah. So when I look back on my adult professional life, I certainly started out doing science and engineering work. Um, then I got interested in the business of science and engineering, and uh, started doing some, a lot of rational analytical type stuff, left brain, mostly left brain type of work, you know, uh, market research, product development. But as I matured, I got pulled. It was initially like being drawn to the more human aspects of science, engineering, and business. Um, so I got interested in sales and marketing, which is a innately human endeavor, because you have to connect with other human beings
right.
and see what their needs and wants are, and try to develop a product or satisfy. Needs and wants are things that are very hard to calculate, but very easy to talk about if you're willing to talk to another human being.
Uh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so that's what started for me. And then, just throughout my life, I kept being attracted to roles that were more human centered rather than technology or systems centered, to the point now where my most fulfilling and I think my most impactful work is the one-on-one coaching I do with senior leaders in organizations. Again, it's an innately human connection that I value and enjoy. Get tremendous satisfaction. Another emotion, satisfaction. Yeah.
Yeah, it's human connection is valuable, and what I noticed lately is that we, independently of our profession, we tend to stay in our head,
Mm-hmm. True.
and we rarely genuinely connect with the other person.
Yes.
So, for those new to positive intelligence, how do you describe this in a language easy to understand?
Okay. Well, in a bottom line, positive intelligence is a way of responding to the world, the outside circumstances, other people, in a positive rather than negative way. Or we could say it in a more skillful way, in a more skillful way. So that would be a very shorthand way of expressing it. And we could dive into this. But
Mm.
if you live in your brain, which many of us do, especially if we've been trained in science and engineering, So our left brain has become highly conditioned, very useful, by the way, for practical purposes in the outside world, except when you go home to your wife and she says, well, I had a horrible day, and she tells you what happens, and then you give her the solution to what she can do, and then she storms out, closes the door, and doesn't talk to you for a week, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah. So positive intelligence lives more in the right brain where human connection, the empathy circuitry lies for the mirror neurons. Okay, we could dive into the neuroscience of this, but which might be satisfying for a lot of people to get them back over to their left brain. But we're not going to do that today.
No, for sure not.
Right,
You said positive intelligence can be skillful.
skillful.
Yes,
Right.
skillful in what way, David?
Well, that's a good question. You kind of know it when you see it. So when your wife storms off after you just gave her the solution to the problem that she was having that day, and you're perplexed as to why that happened, I would say that your response was not very skillful,
Mm-hmm.
right? You are trying to help your wife in that moment, but you failed actually because you used a hammer when she's not a nail. So what when I say skillful, I mean in getting the results you want in human interaction, right? Because yeah.
So being able to practically read the other uh,
Mm-hmm.
partner,
Yeah.
the colleague or the coachee,
Yeah.
right?
Or
And
your wife or your children. Yeah.
right. So, what is
So
then
where do
the
you think I'm going to ask you a question. Where do you
yeah?
think so we all have this ability. I like what you said about read your whoever you're with, right? Whether it's a colleague, a spouse, a child, a friend. We all have this ability. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but where do you think that lives? What part of the brain does that live in, and what do we call it? By the way, Einstein was very good at this.
Um, I don't know in which part of the brain. Um, Somewhere in between the analytical brain and the creative, so somewhere in between the
Right.
left and the right side of the
Correct.
brain.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I agree that we all have this ability. I also think that we are not often using it because we are living in our brains and tend
Mm-hmm.
to, because of the outer world, which is very fast, we tend to find faster a solution to
Mm-hmm.
get rid of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think if we would be open to listen to what the others are saying and be able to ask them questions without presupposing something, this will make the life easier.
Yeah. So everything you said is brilliant, and we would call the ability to read someone. It's something called intuition. It's an inward looking voice. You're sensing someone's, you actually have the ability to sense someone's mood or emotion. We all have this ability. Now, the science of that is they put two human beings in functional MRI imaging machines They put them head to head, and they have one person think about something that generates an emotion in their brain. The other person is quiet, and their brain lights up in the exact same region without any verbal communication. This is called mirror neurons.
Neurons. Mm.
Yeah, mirror neurons. Now, Einstein, who was probably one of the most rational, analytical thinkers of the 20th century and a physicist and mathematician, once said, I'm paraphrasing here, the rational, analytical mind is a faithful servant, but the intuitive mind is a sacred gift. Now, if the most rational, analytical thinker of the 20th century would say that your intuition is a sacred gift, then who are you in the audience to ignore it? That would be unskillful.
Um, uh, it's true that intuition plays a very important role. Um, on the other hand, it's also true that due to this fast-paced world in which we live, yeah, um, we tend to rely more on the data, on what we
Mhm,
see black on white.
mhm,
And I experienced that not many people are um, relying or believing their intuition. And I fully agree that we feel before we think.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, you go
Well,
into a room and you immediately sense the what's in the air. Yeah,
we call it the atmosphere. You
the
sense the
atmosphere,
atmosphere.
right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So for those who are reluctant to trust their intuition, I was one of them for a very long time. Um, it's just data. Intuition is data. It's just another data point. That's all. You can you can listen. It does take. We can talk about what it takes to access this data. Um, it takes some practice because the the world we live in now, modern civilization, is uh, mostly left brain stuff, and our right brain has somewhat atrophied. Especially the conditioning of the educational system
Mm.
causes the right brain, the creative brain, to atrophy. But it's still there and can be strengthened. And the brain is very plastic, so all those neurons can be fired up again. And I've been just um, over the past 10 years trusting and accessing my intuition and listening to it. It does take some being quiet, like some meditation or some practice of silence. Um, if you are a Christian, we might call this contemplative prayer. If
Mm.
you're a Buddhist, we would call this meditation. Um, if you're an atheist, we would call this just sitting down with a cup of coffee and being quiet.
Let's say an
And
agnostic, not an atheist.
agnostic, yeah, that's agnostic, atheist, either way. I'm not judging it. I'm not judging anyone in the audience for anybody. See, that would be the the rational analytical mind would want to judge people. Oh, oh, he's a Christian. He doesn't know anything. He's a Buddhist. He doesn't know anything. He's a agnostic. He doesn't know anything. See, that's the rational analytical mind trying to make sense of the world, right? Not so helpful, by
Mm.
the way, not so skillful, because wisdom comes from lots of sources.
Right. It's
Mm-hmm.
true. And it comes also from um, conversations, from interacting with other cultures.
Absolutely. Yeah, and listening,
It's very
listening.
important. Li- Active listening and intentional listening.
absolutely. And
Because
intuitive listening too.
how did jujitsu help you in this direction?
It's a good question. Now we're going to get into the body or somatic information, right? The body has information also, um, except many of us don't listen to our bodies because we're the part of the body that's from about here below. Okay. Um, so for me, my jujitsu journey started as a sort of a dream, a from when I was a young boy growing up in New York City in the 70s, and this was the age of martial arts, right?
Mm.
Bruce
Bruce
Lee,
Lee.
yeah, right. And I had this sort of desire, like completely uh, not rational at all. I just had this kind of interest or desire to become proficient in a martial art, and so it only took me about let's say 40 years to that dream was always alive. So this is completely irrational, right? And then starting jujitsu at the age of 52 when I started is completely irrational. I have to tell you. And yet there was something about it that was pulling me toward it. It was a dream, something that came alive again. And I said, I'm going to go fulfill this dream. And as I started on that journey, jujitsu is all about feeling what's happening. Like a lot of guys and women, but my younger daughter trains also. Um, Mostly it's a guy thing. So if I say guys, I'm encompassing all genders here. So a lot of people come into jujitsu with a highly developed rational analytical brain, and they try to figure everything out in jujitsu. Except that's not how you get proficient in jujitsu. Jujitsu is a feeling. Once you get past, I mean, yes, you have to learn some things, and there are techniques, and then you do this and you do that. Except when you do this and the other person does something else, what do? And then your rational analytical mind starts to try to figure it out. And by that time, you're tapping.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know,
Um, how do you know in your body that you've left presence?
oh, that's a good question. If I know that I've left presence, if I'm overthinking something, like if I start um, ruminating over failure, for example, or criticizing myself for making a mistake, or judging somebody for having said something that I don't agree with.
Mm.
This is how I know. And so this is the work of positive intelligence. It's just being present with the experience. That includes being present with the experience of pain, which I'm experiencing some right now. I think I
Yeah, yeah.
had surgery on my left knee on Monday, and there's some pain in that knee now, and I'm just letting it be there. I'm aware of it, and yet I'm here present with you.
Well, we before we entered in the live stream, we were talking about your surgery, and I said that it's important to have a good doctor performing the surgery, but you also have to have a bit of luck, which I translate in, a bit of uh, divinity guiding those hands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I am blessed today to have had um, divine guidance for my doctor doing the operation on Monday. And I do believe that whatever you want to call it, a force, an energy, a spirit, God, Allah, uh, nothingness in the Buddhist tradition has a profound impact in our lives. Yeah. So I feel blessed today to be with you and recovering, and I also know that my body has the ability to heal itself. And although I pray and ask for divine intervention to help with that healing. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I'm
So
sure that you will recover and heal very well.
thank you. Yeah.
Uh,
But I will say it's interesting. I want to share something about doctors and the medical industrial complex, which many of the listeners, watchers here, I'm sure have interfaced with from time to time. Um, medical doctors are highly rational analytical thinkers, and yet they are in a profoundly human endeavor. And so the best doctors that I've experienced are the ones that are able to balance the human interaction of dealing with the patient with the rational analytical necessity of the scientific knowledge of medicine. Yeah.
mm,
I went on an appointment this morning, an annual appointment to one of the doctors I see. And in the United States, we have something called a physician's assistant, which is basically someone with a PhD, not quite an MD. This is the first time I had seen this person. Happened to be a woman. Oh my God. This was like the coldest. It was like you could have stuck a cold spoon in my mouth. That's like it was came out of the freezer. It was like the human interaction part. She's like sitting down at the computer and like, oh, I see that your lab reports are da 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 da, and I see we didn't get these results da 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 da, and your blood pressure's good da 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 da, and I'll see you in a year. Okay, well, that was completely unsatisfying to me.
in what way unsatisfying? What did you feel?
I didn't feel seen at all as a human
Mm,
being at all. I was like, what just happened to me? Like literally, I came out of there. I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to go back to that person. This is just like I could read my own lab reports. I don't, I know my weight. I know my blood pressure. I don't need you to tell me that. There was like no human connection
connection.
whatsoever. It was so interesting that that happened this morning in advance of this call. And if you're in a technical field that requires you, if you're in the audience now and you're in a technical field and it requires you to interact with other human beings, you might want to think about before you deliver the data, you might want to just connect with the other human beings in the room where you're going to be presenting your data. It might go better for you.
Mm.
Yeah.
By
That
the
would be
way,
skillful. That would be skillful.
um, for those in the audience live, we are happy to read your comments or questions for David. So don't be shy and just start typing.
Mhm.
Um, David, which saboteur appears most frequently in high achieving analytical leaders?
Sure. First, let's talk about what these saboteurs are. They are mental patterns and
Mm,
habits of behavior. So, mental patterns that manifest as habits of behavior. So, internal world, mental habits, patterns of behavior, external world, that undermine our performance and our relationships. So that's the definition of a saboteur. And I've already talked about the judge. That's kind of like the master saboteur. It's a way we judge others, right, wrong, stupid, smart. It's a way that we judge ourselves, unworthy, for example, or we criticize ourselves when we make errors or mistakes, or it's a way we react to circumstances, the world coming at us, like this shouldn't be happening to me, type of reaction. And then there's other ways that ways we sabotage ourselves. And for those in the technical fields, I see a lot of what we call hyper rational behaviors. So I gave an example earlier of when you go home and your wife is just looking to, or your spouse is just looking to have you listen to them as they share their tough day, and you're quick with the rational analytical solution. That would be a way you sabotage your relationship with your spouse. It's the hyper rational that does that. Also, those who are very successful in life can have something we call the hyperachiever. So it colludes with the hyper-rational and has you convinced that everything is about getting the next promotion, the next job, go, leads to a lot of burnout in people because they never take time to rest or recover the body because they're constantly
chasing something.
Chasing, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very common. Like for many folks who are in the audience who've been successful, like success is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's when that and rational analytical thinking is very helpful, except when those are the hammers that you bring to every situation and every interaction in your life, then you basically undermine relationships and you undermine your own. Here's the thing about the hyperachiever that people don't understand. A hyperachiever, someone with a hyperachieving saboteur, will never take on a project that they can't think that they can achieve it. It actually undermines performance because the hyperachiever will never accept. So, for example, I used to climb mountains for about 15 years, including in Europe, by the way. They would never take on a climb that they know that they can't get to the top of.
So
and
they will
trust me,
not take. Sorry,
they will
they
not
will not
take it.
take the risk.
They will
will
not take
take
the
only
risk.
calculated risks.
Only risks that they believe they can overcome. It's a counterintuitive way you sabotage yourself if you're a hyperachiever. You never take on something so big that you have no idea how you're going to achieve it. You'll never take that on. And some people in the audience are saying, oh, that's not me. I'll take it on. Yeah, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah, it's also a need of being always in control also of the outcome.
Controller is another very common saboteur behavior that we see in managers and leaders, right? Because early in your career, you get rewarded. I mean, by its definition, management is control.
Yeah.
Right. So managers get rewarded for having everything under control, except when things are beyond your control and then you don't know how to respond, and you refuse to accept that things are out of control. See, then you don't have the tools to deal with things that coming at you and that are not within your control.
Right, because it's one thing to manage tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like hands-on, and it's other thing to manage people. You cannot handle people like tasks.
Actually, you actually dehumanize people when you handle them like objects, like tasks. We see a lot of this.
Mm.
You see, when I think, when you report to me and you come in and have our one-on-one every week or every 2 weeks, whatever the frequency is, and I'm your boss, and all I do is go over your task, I've immediately dehumanized you,
Yeah,
because then you become your task and not the human being that's sitting in front of me.
yeah, right.
And by the way, when you dehumanize somebody, you can do anything to them. That's what's happening in the world right now. That's what's happening in the war in Ukraine and Russia that you and I talked about. When you turn a human being into an object, you can do anything to that object.
Into a mean of reaching or satisfying a purpose. Yeah.
Exactly.
What
Exactly.
what emotions do saboteurs amplify, David?
Ooh, many of the afflictive emotions. Fear is one, and all its um, subcategory, like anxiety, for example. So some people, one of the saboteurs is restlessness. I had this saboteur for a long time until I worked on it. It's
Mm.
an anxiety driven need to always go on to the next thing. Anxiety is a subset of fear. Um, Hypervigilance. A lot of people, will not take any risks at all. Maybe they grew up in a traumatic household. So a lot of these saboteurs get born in childhood. They were very protective and very helpful growing up. But when you're a manager and leader and you won't take risk because you're hyper vigilant, you're managing from fear. Another I mentioned anger in all of its different shades of color. Frustration is a form of anger. So, for example, the manager who's a controller is constantly frustrated by his people who do not get tasks done on time. And so,
Or in the way it was asked
or
for.
the way that he wants it to be done. Right.
Yeah, I had
Right.
an experience like this when I was in high school with my physics teacher. Uh,
Mm,
um, as I said, and I think also the audience knows, I was born in Romania, in Bucharest. So I attended high school there.
mhm,
And it was not common for the teachers, some of the teachers, not all of them, I don't want to generalize, to accept also from the students another way of solving problems. Um, and as you mentioned the example with the manager that is frustrated because the tasks are not finalized in time and in the way or shape they asked for. It was a similar situation with my teacher. I was not always solving the problems in the way that she taught us to. So
mhm,
I
right.
think everyone lived at least one similar situation, either in school or in job.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure if I have the ability to share something. Do I have that ability, Anna, to share my screen?
Yes, you do.
Oh,
You
okay.
have to press on present.
Present. Okay. I want to share something here with the audience that might be helpful. And let me see. Okay. I think I probably have to upload it and I can't, it would have to have been previously uploaded. Oh, share screen. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Let me see if I can share this. No. Just bear with me, folks. I'm trying to share a vocabulary list of emotions. And that's not it. I don't seem to be able to pull up the PDF, so I'll cancel that. Anyway, there I have a list of emotions. You can email me. I had no emotional vocabulary 10 years ago, zero, except maybe I knew when I was angry. That's about it. Um, but I've done a lot of work since then, and I have a very good list of vocabulary that can help you feel what you're feeling and put a word to it. I didn't
Mm,
have any of these words, um, but there's all kinds of like just different kinds of fear: anxious, cautious, defensive, evasive, horrified, hysterical, nervous. I mean, you can see the layering of this. On the anger side, you might be being abrasive, aggressive, annoyed, boiling, brooding, explosive, frustrated. So you get a sense of this. And I'm happy to share, or I can post that PDF in the comments once this thing is recorded so
would be
that the
great.
audience will have
Yes.
some vocabulary so they can actually feel what they're feeling.
Mm. David, are there or what language patterns create distance and defensiveness?
Hmm. Well, certainly in my experience, any language that comes out of your mouth that is from a state of being hijacked by one of the saboteurs, right? So if you express your, um, if you judge someone, if you criticize someone, for
Mm,
example, instead of trying to understand, like if someone does something like solves the problem in a different way than the like your physics teacher, then rather than saying, "Well, you did that incorrectly. I wanted you to do it this way," if your teacher were to come to you and say, "Whoa, that's a very creative way of solving that problem. Tell me how you came to that." You see how one way cuts off relationship and the other way invites relationship.
right.
And that memory, look, you shared that story from your childhood. That memory of disconnection is so uh, burned into your memory because it was such a moment of disconnection. Whereas that teacher, you could have had a very different memory. Like you could have been sharing a story with us how when you solved that problem in a different way, this wonderful teacher
Well,
invited
I
me.
have another story,
All
David.
right, well, I want to hear that one. Let's
Also with
hear it.
my physics teacher. My
Okay.
physics teacher from um, gymnasium, um, she is the reason why I fell in love with physics.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that this memory stayed embedded in my body,
Psyche.
my psyche. Um, yes, it stayed there, but it doesn't trigger something negative in me.
Mhm.
And I think that this is also something that everyone can choose, either to let that emotion trigger something that makes
Mhm.
you, I don't know, mm, a victim,
Mhm.
or if you can take that emotion and, as you said at the beginning of our conversation, transform it into something useful for you. And I
Mhm.
didn't let that memory to affect my passion and love for physics. That's why I studied
Mhm.
physics
Yeah,
at
no,
the
I,
end.
I
So
like what
it's
I like what you say. Yeah. I mean, a lot of our experiences in life, I know I can speak for myself. A lot of my experiences in life growing up in the in my adult professional life kept pointing me to uh, being a better manager, a better leader, a better human being. And what does that mean? That means more human connection and um, being more skillful in how I interact with people. You know, leadership and management is fundamentally, until everything is run by artificial intelligence, is still a human endeavor.
Right.
And being a skillful at communication, being skillful at interaction, um, I'd say is about 80% of what you need. The remaining 20% are the tasks and the action items that have to be handled. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you mentioned now AI and humans. I don't think that the humans will be replaced by AI, because humanity it's not something that is replaceable. I still feel strongly that each of us has something magic
Mhm.
in him or herself. We just have to ask ourselves what's our magic and build on it.
Yeah. That's a very optimistic view. I'll take that for today. I can I have my concerns, but
Well,
at the same time that I have concerns, I share your optimism.
I invite you, David, to think after this session what's your magic, and also our audience, and then maybe you can put in your in the comments what's your magic.
Well,
Um,
I know mine, so I'll tell the audience. I rediscovered my magic. I actually am a very sensitive person. I have a what would be called HSP, highly sensitive person. By the way, there's a lot of good science, neuroscience on this, and that's my magic. I can sense. I'm an empath. Yeah,
well, you see, this is irreplaceable. No machine will be able to.
that's correct because right now the AI models are language processing models, and empathy has nothing to do with language.
Nope.
Anyway,
Um,
I'd
David,
love to hear from the audience what their superpowers are.
yeah, me too. I'm inviting everybody to write what's their magic, reflect on it, and answer. If not now, maybe later on.
And try not to analyze your way to it.
Mm-mm.
Try to just feel it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, how do you notice when ego is trying to protect something?
Well, ego is always trying to protect something. So, one of the great things about jujitsu is that there's so much failure. So, it takes about 9 to 10 years to get a black belt in jujitsu. And there's so much failure along the way that a lot of your ego gets extinguished, not
Mm.
just in the realm of jujitsu, but in other areas of life. And so, what I've noticed, and if you listen to other uh, people who train in a martial art, is that one of the benefits, I think it is a benefit, is that that voice of the ego gets quieter and you develop humility. Yeah. And also something from Zen, what is it called? Beginner's mind, because people with a highly conditioned rational analytical mind have a big ego and they think they know all the answers or can figure out all the answers to everything, except when they can't. And then um, that causes a lot of suffering. Whereas when you have a beginner's mind, you're willing to say, I don't know. What do you think?
Right. And I had as guest in one of my previous sessions Sue Knight. She's a NLP master,
Mhm.
um, and a beautiful personality. And she said, and what I've learned from her, be curious.
Be
It's one
curious.
of the biggest qualities one can have.
Right.
Um, it's this state of genuine curiosity opens a lot of opportunities and perspectives.
Couldn't agree more. Um, Having worked with a lot of engineers and scientists over the years, uh, including in higher education, super left brain thinkers, very notable people who I will not name, they were not curious at all. Yeah,
Yeah, if you stay in your head and try to support, prove, reassure your own perspective, this will not allow for growth.
right. And here's one way. There's a bit of a paradox in this, what we're talking about, folks, because if you're technically trained, you do have answers, and we're not saying don't express those answers. What we're saying is express your answer, but not be attached to being right about it. Be curious, like about what someone else might say. And when you come to a relationship with curiosity, the richness, again, we're talking about leaders and managers now. When you're curious, even though you might have a solution and you can express it, but be curious about what the other person might have to say.
Mm.
And you'll be surprised about how much innovation comes from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, how do leaders soften without losing authority or having the impression that they have lost the authority?
How do they soften?
Yeah, how do they become more human?
Well, in the positive intelligence program, we talk about the sage power of empathy. That's a great place to start. We all have empathy circuitry in our brains. So unless you're a psychopath, and if you're on this call, I doubt you're a psychopath because there are some issues with their empathy circuitry that's well known. Um, you can um, just be open. Like one way is just to be open, soften a little bit, literally just be open. Or when you're with another human being, just look at them. Think about what they might have been like as a child. It's another good way to be with somebody. Or what I like to do is just generate. You can actually generate this. You generate warmth for the other person. You generate like a feeling of warmth or
Create,
caring.
create a space for a positive experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people will pick up on that because we talked about this, right? The their intuition, the mirror neuron system, if you're generating warmth and curiosity and caring, they will feel it. If you're generating anger, frustration, uh, um, judgment, they'll feel that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So I invite you to just, if you do nothing else, just start to be more open and warm in meetings and be curious. Yeah, those are good ways to bring more human into interactions.
That's a very nice way to end our session, David, because we came to uh, the end of our session. Thank you for your clarity, your honesty, and the humanity you brought. Thank you to everyone here. Leadership, it's not about perfection. It is truly the inner work of outer experience. And before we close, remember Wednesday, December the 10th. It's the next session from 9 to 10 a.m. Vienna time. Leadership's Unspoken Language, Habitual Expressions and Psychosomatics with Linda Thackeray, founder of the Face and Body Interpreter. Until then, stay curious, stay connected, and lead with purpose. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.